Welcome to the ODDSBREAKER'S #1 place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 30 of 2020. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at The ODDSBREAKERS or follow us on social media / The ODDSBREAKERS. This episode is being brought to you by mybookie.ag. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie. Use the promo code The ODDSBREAKERS. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs, sponsor the podcast or the website, we'd love to help you. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member for $17.99 a month. You can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. For $2 more, you can have all that and get patron subscription that gives you the podcast a little bit early. And if nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. My friends, wow, what a messed up world we live in. I've never seen so many people that agree on the actual premise of something fight so hard about how the message is sent. I have never seen that in my life. They pretty much 100% agree upon the problem, but they have a major problem on how each other is delivering it, and it's causing absolute mass hysteria. Everyone just take a freaking break. All right? No more pointing fingers. Just come up with some ideas. That's all I have to say. There is a meteor coming down towards the earth. It's the size of a football stadium, which would pretty much mess up some shit pretty bad if it hit us. Scientists are saying there was no way it was going to hit us anyway. But I'd like to think that when the meteor saw the planet Earth and saw how absolutely stupid and stubborn the human race is, it went off and decided that it want absolutely nothing to do with these clowns. These people have major mental issues, and I want absolutely nothing to do or want to be around the human race.
Unreal.
You know? Anyways, this show's never been about politics, so we always want to distract people's minds and put them somewhere else. And that's why we have a great slate of guests for you today. We have the Santa Anita Derby coming up, and we are bringing in SIG from wagertalk.com to talk about that race. And on Saturday, we have UFC 250, and we are bringing in Cub Fan Danny. Before we get into those guests, I would like to talk a little bit about the NBA, because unlike baseball, they have decided that they're going to come back, and they just voted on it, and it is approved. There's probably a few more things to fix, some T's crossed and some I's dotted, but it looks like 22 teams are going to go to Orlando, play 8 regular season games, probably to get their seeds taken care of here, and start the NBA playoffs that I believe is going to go through from late July. This whole thing's going to start in late July all the way through mid-October. So there you go. Bravo, NBA, for finally figuring out a way to get your sport back. The fact that Major League Baseball is being such a pain in the ass is extremely frustrating to baseball fans. And it's also frustrating to the fact that their sport is going to crumble unless they do something to fix it. They're not going to capture those young viewers that they need. So, baseball, it's time to get your head out of your ass. Maybe sacrifice a few cents for whatever reason, both sides, owners and players, and just get the job done. All right? Get the job done for all of us. Now, all that's, of course, if Yellowstone doesn't erupt next week.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
All right. Let's get into our first guest to talk about the Santa Anita Derby, Mr. SIG from WagerTalk.com. And now I am very happy to introduce a longtime handicapper in the horse racing world. You've heard and seen him on Pony Pundits on Wager Talk TV. I'd like to welcome SIG from WagerTalk.com. You can find him on Twitter at SIG Las Vegas. SIG, my man, looks like horse racing is kind of blown up a little bit, which is great. How have the ponies been treating you this year?
Oh, we've been having a pretty good run here. It's been, first off, thanks for having me on. Horse racing is coming back here in a big way. The shutdown with COVID had a dramatic effect on the horse racing world. But a ton of tracks have been open in the past few weeks, with a few more opening this week. And we seem to be getting back on track here.
Yeah, exactly. Back on track's the way to say it. I've noticed there's definitely some more money, some of these bigger graded stakes races. I've been playing a little bit myself. A little bit more, let's just say. I guess if you compare it to other years, I'm doing some baseball, maybe a couple races at a couple track once in a while, not even every Saturday, but I'm pretty much been playing every Saturday, and it's been working out well, talking to guys like Marco and people in the industry. So it's been fantastic, and I know you guys have a great show over there, seen it, and you always have great information for people. So I also want to thank you for coming on the Odds Breakers here, Sig.
My pleasure.
So how long have you been betting horse racing? And I don't mean, I guess you can talk if you were just dabbling before, but I guess seriously, and what got you into the sport?
Oh, actually, I'm newer to the sport. A lot of guys, and like a guy like Marco has stories about his dad taking him to the track and him play some bets when he was like 8 years old at the counter. Oh, this is from my dad. Unfortunately, I don't have that. My gambling background came from poker. My family was a poker family, so I've been playing poker since I was 5 years old. I was interested in racing back in high school and college, and we have a local harness track here, so that would be a place to go drink beer and place a couple $2 bets when I was back in college. But I kind of got away from it for a while, had a family, had kids, and ran into some marital problems in 2012, and actually fell into a pretty good depression. And I lost my best friend in 2013. Oh. And from there, I was just looking for something to get me out of it. And I ended up turning to horse racing. And let me tell you, it was an expensive education.
I'm sure it was, and I apologize about that tough streak you had there. Definitely, things like that change a person's life a lot, and the fact that you came out of it is fantastic. The fact that you've been doing it since 2013 is actually a lot longer than a lot of people can say. Without the internet started popping up, and that's when people started. The ability to watch these horse races, and really until broadband speed started coming in 2013, 14, 15 is when people really start jumping into it, right? So you have a beat on some people there for sure. That's some good experience. There's a lot of people that haven't even been sports betting since then. So fantastic that you came out of that depression and everything and become the great handicapper that you are, my man. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Being that sports has been quite limited, obviously. More and more people, like we just talked about, have been betting the horses, right? I'm sure there are people listening here that haven't done it, but are thinking about it. I mean, thinking kind of like, what the hell type thing. If there's somebody out there that's a beginner and just kind of want to dabble a little bit, what advice would you give the beginner?
Well, with any type of gambling, the most important role is bankroll management. You have to make sure you have enough money available to bet and look at it as entertainment initially. Nobody's going to go in saying, I'm going to become a professional horse player, I'm going to become a professional sports bettor, I'm going to become a professional poker player, and just sit down and start. And there's a lot of experience that is involved in it. A lot of mistakes are made, and they become expensive mistakes if you don't do it right. But the best thing to do is, number one, bankroll management. Number two, study. There's internet forums to study. There are books written out there. In poker and horse racing have a lot of parallels in the fact that you're dealing with incomplete information. Anybody can go out and buy a racing form and have the same information in front of them. It's a matter of how you break down that information, the trends that you follow, the trainers, the tracks, the horses, all play a role in it. So when you're looking at the racing form, you need to be able to disseminate information that's there but not actually there for the naked eye to see.
Absolutely. So what kind of plays do you think would you recommend for a starter?
For a starter, I would recommend win and place betting, but I wouldn't recommend betting favorites. When you bet a favorite, the favorite only wins approximately about 1/3 of the time. And a lot of times you'll see these favorites go off at 2-1 or worse. And if you bet 3 favorites at 2-1 and one of them comes in, you're going to get your $6 back that you wagered, showing no profit and nothing for the time and effort that you put in there. So if you're looking to bet, don't look at the favorites. Look for horses that maybe are 5-2 or better. If you play 3 horses at 5-2 or better and hit one, you're still going to show a profit of $1 for that 3-race sequence.
Right. So watch out for favorites when they're only winning 1/3 of the time in general. Even if you bought the card and the PPs, you're not going to know really what the public doesn't know, because everybody looks at the speed figures and everything anyway, and that kind of affects the odds before the race, as you all know out there, or some of you might know. Horse racing is parimutuel. There's not a set amount. It's a share of the whole pot. So totally agree with you there. If you don't know much about them, especially, you definitely don't want to be using favorites. Do you recommend getting into any of the exotic plays that you and I love so much?
I think it's something that you evolve into. I mean, if you're just coming into horse racing, stick with the win plays, get a feel for it. And then the next logical step is either the daily double or the exacta. With the daily double, you're betting the winner of 2 consecutive races. And with the exacta, you're betting the winner and the runner-up, the place, or the second runner-up horse in exact order on those. So you can place those bets in usually $1 or $2 increments depending on your track, and spread them out. So you could play like 2 horses in one leg and a horse in the other, depending on the position and so forth. So, I mean, you don't have to place a big bet in order to get a larger return depending on the horses you use. I would recommend using maybe the second or third choice along with a couple longer shots underneath, and you'll have yourself a nice exacta or daily double.
100%. Exactas are probably, and daily doubles are the next step. I probably personally bet the most in exactas. It's kind of the first thing I'm looking at. When I do it personally, it's just my preference. And it's just because if you get a good sequence, it's going to get a good payout. Trifectas are definitely a lot more tricky. And if you keep betting trifectas, you can lose the whole card if you're just betting straight up trifectas, especially. And the chances of them hitting are a lot less than people think. And if you're betting favorites, you're not making that much money off of them anyway. So 100% agree with you there. So Bob Baffert, right? Everyone knows Bob Baffert, and he's the big trainer, the big name. You see him constantly on the on Horse Racing Nation and FS1 and wherever they show horse racing. You see that he's always has the best horses, when it comes to especially the bigger races, Santa Anita, everywhere, right? Kentucky Derby, Belmont, Preakness, all those races. So he had a pretty rough week last week, and I kind of want you to explain to the listeners what it means. You know, I mean, the headline was saying Bob Baffert had a couple horses fail a drug test. Can you talk a little bit about what happened there?
Right. Well, first, I'm not defending Bob at this point, but the protocols that are in place for a failed drug test were not basically taken into effect on this account for the Oaklawn racing that occurred back on Arkansas Derby Day. Usually, when testing's done, drug testing's done of a horse, there's 2 samples taken. A first sample that's sent out for a test. If that does come back positive, which they did on 2 of Baffert's runners back on May 2nd, a second sample is usually sent out to the lab for retesting and to verify that the first test that did come back was correct. Usually nothing's announced until they get a second positive test and an investigation's begun. But in this case, somebody jumped the gun, released information that 2 Baffert runners on Arkansas Derby Day, which ended up then being later named as Charlatan, who won 1 division of the Arkansas Derby, and Gamine, a filly, who won a nice allowance race, both tested positive for lidocaine, which in some cases can allow for performance enhancement. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, what's going to be stuck with both those horses now going forward is that this positive test was announced out there, which means they'll forever be linked to this, even if the second test comes back as a negative. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, Baffert had a rough week, losing probably his best Triple Crown contender in Nadal. Yeah. Nadal had an issue with his left front condylar, mm-hmm. and they had to insert 2 screws. And more than likely, Nadal's done racing for his career. Baffert did come out and say there is a possibility that he may return to the races. But if I was the connections, he's worth a lot more at stud right now than he would be taking a chance of putting him back on a race course down the road.
Yeah, I mean, just the hype on Nadal kind of says it all here. And actually, I do want to get into that question. But going back to the horses, I mean, did you think? I guess it's hard to ask this. What I'm trying to say is, do you think there was some sort of, trying to beat the rules coming from his stables there? Or is this common when it comes to other trainers?
Unfortunately, in this business, there are a lot of trainers that are on the fringes that do look for ways. I mean, and they say, like, I'm using a NASCAR reference, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. But there are trainers looking for that edge, and there are trainers that seem to improve horses more than other trainers do, especially if you see a trainer, like a horse that's claimed out of maybe it's like an $8,000 race, and all of a sudden his next race out is a $20,000 race, and he just happens to win that race. How did that horse improve that much? Is a trainer that much better, or are they doing something to maybe improve that performance?
Exactly. And so, and that's where it kind of everything becomes gray, I suppose, not exactly black and white, depending upon what people are doing. And I suppose it is somewhat black and white if you're using an illegal substance and just trying to beat it by the time the drug tests come. Are they tested randomly?
Usually no. If a horse races on that day, normally they are all tested. Any horse that goes in, especially for the larger stakes races and so forth, they're going to be tested coming out of that race or going into that race that day.
So literally they could have been doping beforehand and then just kind of cleaned themselves up until that race happened, right?
Right. I mean, I would actually consider what he tested for was lidocaine, which is basically a topical. You could actually get lidocaine, or you get lidocaine in, say, like Aspercream or something that you may use for a back pain or so forth. So it's something that's going to numb an area, and maybe it can enhance performance, which is one of the reasons they do test for it. But what was Baffert looking to? I mean, Charlatan was a pretty good horse before this race, and he looked like a really good horse coming out of this race.
Right.
So I'm not sure if that had the effect that they feel may have caused them to have an unfair advantage over the competition.
That's a great point. Thank you for making that point, because and I suppose if it's not really performance enhancing, but it could have those aspects, the substance can be banned, yet maybe you're just trying to heal the horse, right? That's, I think, where the gray area comes in. So very hard to tell, but I definitely wanted to address it because, you see in the headlines, things that are not exactly what they seem, and it throws people off. So thank you very much for talking about that. Going back to Nadal, man, I know I was circling him, Charlton, and Tiz the Law for the favorites. Not saying I was excited to bet favorites, but I thought that those were the three horses going to, coming into the Kentucky Derby that would be the favorites. So he has a broken bone. It's a very hairline fracture, but even a hairline fracture could end a horse's career, right? And he's going to get screws in there to make sure that, the horse survives. Horses don't heal nearly as well as other people or animals or whatever. So I agree with you. I don't see why you would race someone that has this much hype, because people could always use that this horse could have won the Derby, but maybe the value of that horse goes down if the next race or two the horse doesn't do as good, right? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, as retiring as an undefeated 3-year-old, he won Grade 1 stakes, he won Grade 2 stakes. He's definitely got a ton of value in the breeding market, and gotta admit that pretty lucky for a guy that gets to go out and spend the 200 days a year in the pasture, and when he's not working, when he isn't working in the pasture, and when he is working, he's doing what most of us enjoy.
Serenading other horses, right? Well, I'll tell you this: it's definitely a good life when it comes to a horse racing, a winning horse, because he gets rewarded in his after career very well. Let's just say. So let's talk about the race then here, the Santa Anita Derby, coming on this Saturday, June 6th. And it's a big derby because this has always been looked at one as the prep races for the Kentucky Derby. So let's talk about the favorite right away here. It looks like it's going to be Authentic. It looks like he drew the 7th post here. It looks like
he did. It's a 7-horse field. He drew the outside in the 7th post. As we went to record here, they had not yet posted the morning lines, but I would assume Authentic's going to be your morning line favorite, with Honor AP shortly behind him in the odds.
You're right. Actually, they just came out on later at 4:37 p.m. I'm guessing that's Eastern time. I found on Horse Racing Nation that Authentic is 6-5, Honor AP is 5-2, and those are your two favorite horses here. Is there anything we should know about the Santa Anita Derby before taking a look at the card, or the racetrack in general, even?
There's been some really good horses that came out of the Santa Anita Derby that went on to win the Kentucky Derby. Unfortunately, racing at Santa Anita's basically gone downhill the past few years in just Southern California in general. And it's unfortunate because of how great the racing was in Southern California for all the years between Del Mar, Santa Anita, Hollywood Park. We just had these small fields. The biggest field on Saturday, they have a big card with 5 stakes races. The biggest field's 9, one field's 8, and the rest of the races are between 5 and 7 runners. So if you're looking for value on a horse race, the bigger the field, the more money flowing in and spread out between the competition. So when you have smaller fields like this, it's easier to narrow down and get a lot of money on a favorite, and you don't get as much value out of the race.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you can expect possibly, well, not expect, but you can assume that there's a chance that someone's going to be scratched here, or bring it down to 6 or possibly even 5 horses in this race. I think we've seen that before. And so, possibly maybe there's more value in betting some of the other races here. But being that this is such a big race, I'm very curious on who's going to come out here on top. So, is Authentic a deserving favorite then, you think, or is Honor AP pretty close?
I'm actually really interested to see Honor AP. We haven't seen him since he ran in March. But I think, Authentic is definitely the deserving favorite going into here. He's undefeated in his 3 starts. And last time we saw him was in the San Felipe, where he did beat Honor AP at Santa Anita back in March. Baffert, he's actually Baffert's forgotten 3-year-old, in my opinion. Everybody was talking about Nadal, everybody was talking about Charlatan, but Authentic's done nothing but go out there and win in convincing fashion. He's basically wired the field in his last 2 races, and I expect the jockey, Dre Van Dyke, to go out there on Saturday and try to do the same thing, get off to a good start, get to the front, and control the race.
Well, there you go. It's a mile and an eighth, right? And I don't think many of these horses have quite ran that far. Azul Coast has once, and he did win. And Anu de Or did. I actually was on that horse, I think, a while back in the Arkansas Derby in a couple different ways, and that didn't work out too well for me. Shooter Shoot hasn't went that far, and Friars Road has, but Friars Road is going to be looks like a 20-1 horse anyway. So looking at the field here, not a ton to talk about. Is there any horses that should be completely tossed off the card, you think?
You just mentioned it. The one horse I think that doesn't fit this field and shouldn't be here is Friars Road. He hasn't even broken his maiden yet, and they're throwing him into a huge stakes race here with horses that have already won at Grade 2 stakes. So I think he's just more of a field filler, which, like I said, 7-horse field. It's nice to have a horse in there, but I don't see him making a difference.
Well, there you go. Throw him out 20-1 on the first post there. Now, being on the 7th post here, the fact that the field's so small, I would assume that you're going to say it makes much less of a difference.
Huge. There's no difference really at all, especially for a horse that breaks well, like Authentic does, and that has the speed. Starting like in the 20 post, I think Kentucky Derby at Churchill is horrible because you have to clear 20 horses to get to the lead. But when you start in the 7th, basically he could break out of the gate, take control of the race without dealing with much traffic. So,
right.
Smaller fields definitely to his benefit.
And I suppose if someone was going to look on the inside here, it's not like he could get boxed out either. These smaller fields, you kind of look at really what you think is going to come out, and position is definitely a lot less factored in here. All right, so great stuff on this horse. Is there a long shot that people should possibly key on here?
There are 2 horses here that I'm looking to use more than likely underneath. One is Rushy, who is making his first start in Greatest Stakes competition, and he is for trainer Mike McCarthy. He looked good winning an allowance race back at Oaklawn on Arkansas Derby Day, and what really intrigues me is that Flavian Pratt, who's one of the best jockeys at Santa Anita, is going to hop in and take the reins here on this one. So if anybody can get a good race out of this horse, it's Pratt, and I think that he could basically be on the exotic tickets underneath in your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th spot. I think he's a horse that could challenge here, but he does need to step up. I mean, speed figure-wise, he is nowhere near Honor AP or Authentic right now. And the other horse who I really want to see race here, and I've liked since last year, is Ano Dior, who you mentioned earlier. What I do like is the fact that he's back in California. He started his career out there last summer, got a win, ran 2nd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and then ran 2nd in the Los Alamitos Futurity. This year, though, in his 3-year-old campaign, they shipped him to Fairgrounds for the Risen Star and then shipped him to Oaklawn for the Arkansas Derby. Both times he didn't perform that great, but I think a lot of it had to do with they train him based in California. And for both those races, they trained him in California, shipped him across country for the race. He didn't perform well. They shipped him back to train and then back across the country. It takes its toll. I mean, it takes a toll on a human. So, I mean, it's going to take a toll on a horse as well. So I'm very interested to see how he performs while staying in California. I mean, he's shipping down from Golden Gate, but that's nowhere near shipping across country to Louisiana or to Arkansas. So, and I see that he's now 10-1 in the morning line. I think you do have some value there. I think he's a very talented horse, and I know the connection strongly believe in this horse.
Yeah, definitely back at home where you're comfortable. I mean, some of that factors into other sports with home field advantage, but I mean, this horse without traveling, the air, everything could give this horse the motivation to run like he has before. I've seen that angle used many times, and I've seen it been successful too. So very great points on that. I didn't even think about that. So thank you for discussing that. Looks like Rushy and Ano Dior are kind of the big question marks and long shots here that if they hit the board would make your ticket a little bit sweeter than maybe a horse like Honor AP, or possibly if Authentic has a bad race for some reason. Good stuff. Right. Good stuff, man. So without giving up too much information, what's your strategy in this Derby?
Well, being such a small field, I'm looking to play exacta bets on this race. What I'll do is I'll look at, like I said, I think authentic is the runner to beat. We're going to play authentic in an exacta with honor AP, pretty big. And then what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll reverse that for about half of what I put on the bet the other direction with honor AP beating authentic. Because honor AP actually had the last 3 months off, and these horses really improve and grow in size and stature and so forth during this 3-year-old season. So that's why you see so many differences between, say, the Derby prep races that occur in January and February and the ones that occur in April, and then as they improve throughout the year. They develop quickly at this age, and sometimes, like Marco uses this term, but a light bulb goes off, and they just realize what it takes, and then all of a sudden they're a different horse. So it's going to be really interesting to see that. And then what I'll do is I'll take authentic and I'll play him over a couple other horses here, sort of a smaller exactas, but say a Rushy or a No Dior, or even the other Baffert runner here we didn't mention is Azul Coast, who's been lightly raced. I would play an exacta with those three, and then, like I said, I would come back with half of what I play the other direction with those three in an upset opportunity over authentic. So that way you hedge your bets a little bit.
Well, there you go. Good strategy on that. I would guess that you might be playing a pick 3 or pick 4 as well.
I play pick 3s and pick 4s all day long. The problem, what I like to do is, like I told you earlier, you can't play every race, but I like to have a little action or a little interest in every single race. So I always have pick 3s rolling. I play the pick 4s and pick 5s, and people tell me I'm crazy, but I mean, I like the scores.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus, if you can find through your research a horse that should beat everybody, then you use them in their pick 3 or pick 4 rather than just betting them to win in the race or place or show. Right? It's just you can still play the race.
Right. You still have a little action going. And one of the things, too, that I love to do is I love finding horses that I feel are real strong contenders and then just singling them in those multi-race wagers. That gives me the opportunity to spread out and go a little deeper around them. And sometimes we catch a long shot here, catch our single, and then pays real nice.
Absolutely. That's when it pays off very well. So you guys are pros at that. Appreciate that information. That's probably the way I'm going to be betting this card through that race, possibly looking for some other value as well. Is there any other races you want to throw out there? Anything that needs to be talked about?
It's just a really good card. I mean, if you're getting into horse racing, the Santa Anita card on Saturday has 11 total races. 5 of those are stakes. And one of the other races on the card is the Santa Anita Oaks, which is basically the Santa Anita Derby, but for fillies. Swiss Skydiver, an undefeated horse for Ken McPeak, is making the trip across country to race in the Santa Anita Oaks. I think she'll be the prohibitive favorite in there, but it'd be a good single in your multi-race wagers, I think.
Well, there you go. That's the one to single out there, traveling across country, because she's probably deserves it. The Oaks is always probably the second most favorite race on this day, I would imagine, and I played it many times before. So there you go. Well, real excited for this weekend. How can our listeners benefit from your card and your plays coming up for Saturday?
They can find my plays I usually put cards out 4 to 5 days a week at wagertalk.com. You'll just find my profile page. If you go on the wagertalk.com, look for SIG. Things they can also do for free, I put my top selection. Every day I put a card out. My top selection for every race on that card is free on my profile page at WagerTalk. So if you're not interested in purchasing the package and you just want to see who I like, they're all right there for you. They can also check me out every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Marco D'Angelo from Wager Talk and myself do a show on Wager Talk TV, which is via YouTube, called The Pony Pundits. We cover a race of the day, usually pretty in-depth, and then we give out free Pick 4 tickets that we've had some success with over the past couple months.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was last week or possibly the week before you guys put out a really nice one that paid a few $100. So I was on that one. So I had to thank you guys for that one for sure.
You're welcome.
Fantastic stuff. Make sure you guys check that out. Great value there. Sig, thank you so much for coming on, talking the ponies with us. I think everybody has learned a lot. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to tweet Sig at Sig Las Vegas.
Appreciate you having me on, Kiev.
All right, and now we are going to move into the UFC with our guy, Cub Fan Danny. All right, and now I am happy to introduce our next guest. You know him as our UFC specialist. Mr. Cub Fan Danny is back to talk about UFC 250. You can find him on Twitter at Cub Fan Danny. Bro, how you been, man?
Who doesn't know me? You say that every time, but who doesn't know me? This is so much fun to do this again with you.
Oh, we love you, Danny, and we love awesome events. And this card's okay. I mean, it's got my girl in it, as you know, as the main event, and so you're probably going to give me bust my balls a little bit about that, which is all good. And but I'm excited because we don't have a whole lot of sports going on yet. A few things are kind of coming into fruition, but real excited to watch this event on Saturday.
Listen. You're saying it's an okay event. You're saying that because there's not a lot of names on this event, right? I mean, we've been spoiled the past 3 weeks because we haven't had anything for so long. But this is a slugfest event. This is gonna be fun. People. What's the old ad? People always say about UFC, they get on the floor and they lay around for 30 minutes. They don't do that. That's stupid, number one. But really, people want to see people throw punches, right?
Right.
What's better than having people throw punches for 15 minutes straight and then having a winner at the end instead of watching some boxing match for 10 rounds and they're dancing for 10 rounds, right? So this is going to be a fun card. I would buy it if I was going to be home this weekend if the wife didn't make plans for the first time in 3 months.
You got your phone. You got your phone.
I might end up buying it on my phone and not telling her. But I think it's going to be a really fun card. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Listen, ESPN Plus is going to have the undercard, a couple of fights, and then I think it's going to be ESPN Straight is going to have the undercard, and then it's going to be ESPN Plus pay-per-view. So it's going to be a fun event. Listen, I'm kind of excited for it. I'm really excited for it because really you're going to see some guys throwing punches here. So
I like it.
It's going to be fun.
I like it. And you know what? That's a great point, Danny. Not huge names, but a lot of these fighters will not get on the ground. They'll throw kicks. They'll throw punches, roundhouses, whatever you have. And a lot of these fights might be over before the end of the first round. So that's fun. And
Kiev, you know what I always say this, right? When you have a technical fighter like a Damian Maia, and he's coming up against a guy who's going to knock you out. Once Damian Maia gets his mitts on you and he gets you on the ground, it's over with, and you can kind of see that with the way that the gambling odds are. But in a card like this, where guys are going to throw bombs and guys are going to knock people out and guys are going to go out early, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. So if you want to feel lucky in that one fight and throw a couple shekels down on somebody that's a plus 225 and he hits, you just made your night.
More power to you, my man. Well, this is going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it looks like they finally got that deal done. I know Dana White was talking about moving it if they couldn't get it done here.
In Phoenix, right? Yeah, so they have this multi-million-dollar facility out there that if you watch The Ultimate Fighter, if you're a fighting geek like I am, in fact, I've been watching that the past 2 days, right? The Ultimate Fighter series. They have a great facility. They're going to be fighting in there. There's not going to be a giant arena. They're going to be fighting right inside the facility. It's going to be a great, it's very intimate, very small. You're going to hear a lot more things than you would in a giant arena. So I think it's going to be pretty fun.
Awesome. So it's still going to be fun. I didn't need a crowd, the last time I watched it. I thought it was fine. I don't know if it affected the fighters. I don't know if it didn't. But either way, it worked out great. And I thought it was a huge success. And I think they broke some records, too. So,
and that's a great point, right? Does it affect the fighter or not? I mean, that's one thing you can't judge with stats. That's one thing you can't judge at all is how do these guys feel when they're actually fighting in front of a crowd, right? They're going to give somebody an uppercut and start feeling really good after they've been getting beat up. And all of a sudden the crowd gets behind them and then they're going for it. They don't have that anymore, right? So it's much easier once you're getting beat down to go down because you don't have anybody behind you. So that's one of the hardest things to judge with these fights coming up here. So Yeah, I mean, what is it? What is it? What is it that makes these guys tick, right? Is it the crowd? Is it them? Is it, do they block everything out? So, we'll see. We'll start seeing here the next few months.
All right, man. Well, we will see. It's going to be exciting to watch kind of the stats and us analyzing the bouts without fans to see, compare it to when there was and see if there's any sort of a difference that you can find, maybe for some value down the road. So,
yeah.
Good stuff there. Well, man, let's get into it then. I'll let you start wherever you want to. Where can we? Where are we going to talk? Are we going to find some value right away? What do you think?
Yeah. So listen. I think I said this already 1,000 times already. Did you hear it already? That I said this is going to be a barn burner. There's going to be a lot of punches going to be thrown. Mm-hmm. I think it is one of those cards that's going to happen this way. So I'm pretty excited about this whole card. So when I'm looking up and down, it's like, man, there's value here, but what am I really looking at, right? What do I feel confident in? So Sean O'Malley, right? He's an up-and-comer. He's a crowd favorite. Everybody loves the dude, right? He's a little tiny body with major power. He's like a little smaller Conor McGregor, same type of physique, same type of fighting style, and he's fun to watch, right? He went out for a couple. He was out for a little while. He came back, had a great showing, right? So they're putting him on the main card this time, and I think it's good for him that they're bringing him up slowly, right? Some of these guys at the UFC, they get a guy and they're bringing him up slowly. He does really good, and then they throw him against a champion, and then all of a sudden the champion destroys him, and then the guy's destroyed. So they're doing the right thing with Sean O'Malley, bringing him up slowly. I always tell people one of my mottos is don't fall into the hype. Well, this is one of the guys I'm falling into the hype, right? It's very rare that it happens, but Sean O'Malley's the type of guy that I do it. And here's the reason, because they're bringing him up so slowly, right? So he's fighting against his opponent's Wineland, and really I'm looking at this, I'm saying, who, right? Did I see him fight? He's nothing special, right? Nothing about his opponent says, wow, right? I got to put money on him. Nothing, zero, right? Look, O'Malley's the second biggest favorite on the card. He's minus 500. Some books, he's even higher than minus 500. You can get him at minus 600, right? Who's going to put money on that? I'll never put minus 500. I even have issues doing a minus 200, right? Too much can go wrong. I can't do it, right? But I'm going to take O'Malley winning it inside the distance, either. And I haven't decided yet, and that's something you need to decide yourself. I haven't done it yet, but it's going to either be inside the distance at minus 155. So no matter what happens, he's going to win the fight inside the distance, meaning he could knock the guy out. He could submit him, minus 155. Or take an O'Malley, which I think he's got a great shot of doing, at minus 105 for a KO, TKO, inside the distance. I think those are great odds for you as well. Minus 500, don't touch it. I haven't decided which way I'm going to go, honestly. I think that you might be able to get any type of victory inside the distance, maybe minus 140, minus 145 when the fight starts. But I think that at minus 105 is probably going to stay pretty consistent for O'Malley to KO. But I really like him to win this and win this early. And even the odds are saying that he's going to probably win this in the first, second round. So that's going to be my pick. I'm just not sure which way I'm going to go, and that's your decision as well.
Well, there you go. I mean, it's sure a lot nicer to take minus 165 rather than minus 500 there. You're still laying juice, but if you're pretty confident in O'Malley, 11-0, he's fighting, it looks like a guy that's had about 35, 40 fights under his belt in Eddie Wineland. So you wonder if that's a big factor or not. I guess, has O'Malley beaten anybody before?
Yeah, he's a good fighter. I mean, one of the things with O'Malley, you watch him and he really gives some beatdowns, right? And he's done some really good things in his fight career because he's knocking people out, right? And like I said, with these fighters, they have to come up slowly. They can't come up too quick. Not everybody is, let's say, Mike Tyson, because everybody knows the name Mike Tyson. You can't bring guys up like that. You got to bring them in slowly. If you don't bring them up slowly, they'll completely fall apart once they're getting to the guys that are at the top echelon of the UFC. So I really like him a lot. I think they're doing the good thing for him. They're putting him on the pay-per-view and the main card. So now everybody's going to get excited about it. So listen, I have no complaints with the guy at all as a fighter because he's got some big power, right? I like him. I like him a lot.
All right. Well, there you go here. And, if you want to get super cute, you can go Malley wins in round 2 at plus 375. That's pretty good value there. It's actually plus 175 in the first round. And the O'Malley wins in the third round. I'm looking for it. I can't even find that one. So, nope, it's plus 775 in round 3. So it's telling you that he's most likely going to win in the first round. If you want to get a little cute, throw a few bucks on him winning in round 2 there. So,
in his professional career, Kiev, he's 11-0, right? And we all know 11-0 guys, once they start getting to the top echelon, they could start losing. But again, UFC's doing the right thing. They're not forcing him. He's got 7 wins by knockout, 1 by submission, only 3 by decision, right? So, Contender Series, demolished him, 1 by a KO. His first fight in the UFC, he ended up getting a decision fight, which I'm going to say, fine, it's your first real fight. They gave him a nice opponent in Andrei Sukhamanov. He's a good fighter. He won a decision there and ended up being fight of the night, so they gave him a very tough fighter. And then listen, his last fight, which was just in March, okay, just not even that long ago, he won in the first round, performance of the night with the TKO, with the head kick and punches. So the kid's legit, right? Mm-hmm. And on top of it, he's fighting out of Phoenix, Arizona. Listen, I'm an Arizona boy right now, right? So I'm gonna root for him even more. So I like that. I think he's gonna want to finish this, and I think that putting him on the main card is really, really a good thing for him. And putting him up against a guy that's a guy, right? Nobody's special. So again, will I touch a minus 500? Not close. I have to pick something inside the distance there to make it worth my while, and that's what I'm going to do.
I love it, my friend. Great analysis right there. Who should we look at next?
Okay. Listen, co-main event is Cody Garbrandt and Rafael Assanio. Look, both of these guys, Cody's lost 3 in a row. Rafael's at the end of his career. He's lost 2 in a row. I'm a little shocked that this is a co-main event, honestly, to be honest with you, Kiev. But I'm going to tell you something. I think the reason why they made it the co-main event is because there's going to be a lot of punches thrown here, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Both of these guys, like I mentioned, are on losing streaks. And to me, Cody's looked really, really, really bad. Since he won that fight with Dominic Cruz, he's gone 0-3, right? So he won the championship, beat Dominic Cruz, one of the best fighters in the UFC of all time, beat him up, right, in a 5-round decision, won the fight, won the title. He went up against TJ Dillashaw, right? Got knocked out. Then went up against TJ again, knocked out again. Then he went up against a Pedro Nunez and got knocked out again. That's not good. Mm-hmm. That's not good. Cody comes in with a boxing background, and you'll see he's got great hands. He'll throw punches, and you can't not love his stand-up, right? Rafael is just a guy that's 37 years old. He's got his back against the wall. He's an Ultimate Fighter guy, right? Not the series, but just a fighter, right? He knows how to win. And looking at both of these guys, listen, I can't put my money on Cody. I can't do it. I have to take the guy that's going to be the dog against Cody because he's been knocked out not once, not twice, but 3 times in a row. Your brain is shot, okay? So I got to take the dog in this fight. You can get Assanio at plus 120 right now, and I can see before the fight climbing to plus 130. So this is a perfect spot to take somebody that's the dog that has a better chance of winning than anybody else in the card against somebody who's a favorite because of Cody's past experience losing. He lost against TJ Dillashaw. Dillashaw tested positive for steroids. They hated each other, not once but twice, right? So since his first KO loss against TJ, he lost to him again. It rattled his brain. He's never been the same, and he's still thinking about that constantly. So the first shot to the head, it's going to rattle him, and it's not going to make it very easy. The guy hasn't fought in over a year. I'm pretty confident in saying that for me, the most exciting person to win the biggest underdog to win, right? Even though it's not that much, I'm pretty confident in Asano beating Cody because of Cody's past experience in the past 3 fights.
Well, Dillashaw looks like he beat them both. So,
yeah, Dillashaw's a great fighter, right? The problem with Dillashaw is he got pinged with steroids.
Right. So
throw Dillashaw out. It's more of the brain damage that Cody has suffered the past 3 fights. And once you go down once, then again, it's going to happen again, right? So it doesn't take that heavy shot. It could take the clip that'll knock you out.
Absolutely. So, once you get concussed, it happens a lot easier.
Look, Asano's lost 2 in a row. Decision, submission by Marlon Moraes, which is a great fighter, right? He lost but look, and then he won. Decision, 1. He hasn't been. Last time he's been knocked out by KO, right? By punches, and that could have been, body shots. Could have been. It was 2011. That's a long time ago.
That is a long time ago. No,
yeah,
I like it. And I wrote some notes down too, Danny. If I could, what I'm noticing, and I wrote this before our podcast, obviously our appointment here. Cody Garbrandt, he just goes for the jugular immediately, and if he doesn't get it, he gets beat. And especially those last 3 matches, he gets caught, right? Rafael Asano he goes the distance in a lot of his fights, right? So I was trying to look at an under for the actual, go to decision or doesn't go to decision. Well, they're both right now juiced at -120. Okay. So the way I look at it is I don't think this goes to decision. For the points that you made, kind of reassured me that there's an easy chance that he gets knocked out. And number 2, I don't think Cody's going to allow it to go to decision. I think he's just going to come right at it, and if he gets stuck, he gets stuck.
Listen, if you like a big risk, right, massive reward, can you imagine taking a Asano at plus 435 in some books to knock him out, right? Again, 3 fights in a row, 3 KOs in a row. Your brain's not the same after 1. Now we're talking about 3, and the guy hasn't fought within the past year. And full disclosure, I'm not a huge fan of Cody. I'm not crazy about the guy, but 1, 2, 3 times in a row, it becomes a little bit easier. At some point, you're going to throw a marshmallow at his head, and he's going to become a knockout.
All right.
And this could possibly be the night that it happens.
All right. Well, Rafael going for the win here and possibly the knockout at plus 435, and that could be any round there. So that's a sneaky little idea ahead there, Danny. Appreciate that one, man. So I also wrote some notes besides the main event on Sterling versus Corey Sandhagen. So
yeah.
I think that Sterling does, and I know that in general, like you said, there's a lot of punches that are thrown here, but Sterling seems to go the distance a lot, and I wonder if this is a fight that you should bet to go to the distance here. Looking at it, unanimous decision against Pedro Munholtz, unanimous against Jimmy Rivera. He did get the knee bar against Cody Stanham, but the one before that, Brett Jones, decision, unanimous. So when he loses, he gets knocked out. But I'm wondering if this is one of those matches that you might want to go take a leak or something, because you're not going to miss anything.
No, and I think I'm going to tell you, you're wrong. Okay. Don't take a leak, right? I love Aljamain. I love him. I think he's a great fighter, right? But I'll tell you, last time I did bet on him was Marlon Moraes, and he got knocked out pretty quick. And he was only a plus 110. He got knocked out within the first minute, right, of the fight. But after that, he's gone on a tear, right? He fought against Jimmy Rivera. He was a plus 185. He won that fight, right? Against Munoz, he was a minus 115, but Pedro was a minus 125. So he's been essentially the dog, and a lot of his fights are close to being even, and he's won the fights. He took a bad shot against Marlon Moraes, but he's a fun fighter. He really is just enjoyable to watch. So don't go to the bathroom for him. I like him a lot as a fighter. Do I trust him? That Marlon Moraes fight killed me. He's a guy that could be one of the top 8 in a division. He could never be a champion, but he could also knock somebody out and become a champion. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I suppose, but I'm just trying to look at past records here. And yeah, Moraes did beat him. It was a knee, and it was in round 1. He probably caught him. But the rest of this stuff in general is decision. But if you look at the price on it, you're looking at fight goes to decision at -210. I mean, that's a heavy price to pay for what I kind of found.
Yeah,
there.
right.
So
Aljamain's still a young kid. He's not an old guy at all. He's very, very young. He's still learning how to fight. He's still very raw, and you can see he's still very athletic. And I think he holds back at sometimes. So they're throwing him a guy that can beat him, but in the same time, a guy that Aljamain should beat. Right. Mm-hmm. Corey hasn't really beaten anybody that's been, great. I mean, he's beaten Rafael Assanio, who's fighting right after him, right? But other than that, John Lineker, nice fighter, good fighter, right? Decision. Mario Bautista, submission, armbar, right? So, to me, I'm staying away from this fight. I'm going to be honest, Kiev. I looked at it. I watched the fights. I liked them both, right? I'm a fanboy of Aljamain. At the same time, I don't trust Aljamain, right? So I can't tell you that I'm confident in either way, because at this point, these guys, either one of these things could happen. But again, this is not a bathroom break. This is go to the bathroom before the fight starts, and then just hang out the next 20 minutes, and then run to the bathroom after.
All right, well, there you go. Corey Sandhagen, yeah, like you said, just beat the guy that we were possibly going to be on here for the next fight. So, pretty interesting there. And his odds, Corey is it's almost even here, -105, and Sterling is -115. So this is going to be a great fight. It looks like it. So you're right. I won't be missing this one. Well, does that bring up the big daddy of them all, the main event, Danny?
Big Daddy. Listen, you love Amanda, right? So remember when Tiger was at the top of his game? Remember when he was doing steroids and was killing everybody? I'm sure you remember that, right?
Wow, dude.
All right, well, listen. That's just my opinion. What do I know? Right? I just know the guy was huge and he was beating everybody. But here's my point, right? You used to be able to bet. You could bet Tiger or the field, right? That's what it's right now for Amanda or the field, right? And that's how all her fights are. Look, I have not been impressed with Amanda for a while. Okay, her last fight, she went 5 rounds, and she said afterwards, I went 5 rounds to show everybody I can go 5 rounds. Come on. I'm not buying it. At some point, Kiev, somebody is going to clip her, right? At some point, she's going to think, I'm too good. I don't need to train as hard as I did before. It's a fact, right?
Yeah, in 10 years, I can see something like that happening.
Okay, her last fight, she goes, I'm going 5 rounds to show I can go 5 rounds. Do you believe that in a second? Do you believe any fighter wants to go 5 rounds to prove that they're better than anybody else?
No.
Okay, all right. If you don't believe that, then you're telling me that her last fight, she could have lost, right? I'm still going to go back to Valentina Shevchenko. She lost that fight, right? So she's rattled off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights. I'm going 5 rounds to show everybody. Okay. Is Felicia Spencer the best thing since sliced bread? No. Is she a tough girl? Yes. Can she fight inside? Yes. Can she throw punches? Yes. Can she get you to the ground? Yes. Okay. Is she better than Jermaine? Yes. Can she beat Holly Holm? Yeah. She could beat all these girls, right? There's not a lot of competition in the women's division, which what makes people go, oh, I don't like women's fighting. Man, listen, they're going to be some good fights there, win some money and shut up and enjoy it. But Felicia can win a fight. She's no tin can, okay? My only problem is, what did I just tell you what they're doing with Sean O'Malley? They're bringing up slowly. And a girl like Felicia Spencer, they're bringing up pretty quick, right? Mm-hmm. So they're throwing her into the main event against, we'll say, the GOAT of the women's division, okay?
Thank you.
And because there's nobody else to fight her. So at plus 450, is it worth a small shekel on that? Yes, because minus 600, it's not worth it. Unless you think minus 600 and you love her so much that you'll parlay her with every single fighter you're going to bet that night. I'm not crazy about it. I'm not doing it. At plus 450, listen, I think Vegas learned their lesson, because how big was Amanda Nunez? How big was Holly Holm against Ronda Rousey? It was they were both huge dogs, and Vegas lost a ton of money because of that, right? So I think this could be a night where she doesn't want to fight. I think she thinks she's better than she is. It could happen. Kiev, one punch, one bad round, one mess with the head. It could happen. Minus 600, I'm not touching it. I will never touch it. At plus 450, it's worth a couple of coins for me. That's the way I'm looking at it. I'm not telling anybody to bet it, but I'm being a gambler right now. And it's going to be fun when I win.
All right, well, you're not going to win. But either way, I will say a few things that, and of course, I looked into this fight. And I could be wrong about some stuff. You can point some stuff out to me. But the way I look at it is that Nunez, this is a pretty heavy weight. I mean, remember, she was lighter, and then she had to go up to fight Cyborg. Then Felicia Spencer weighed in at 145, and Nunez looks a little bit heavier. You know, when I saw her, she had to gain a little weight, didn't she?
Is she working out?
I would guess. I mean, I hope so.
Maybe. Maybe she's heavier because she thinks she's too good. But
a lot of times when fighters have to go up in weight, that's still not the class that they've been up. What I do see, they're used to, is what I'm trying to say. What I do see is Felicia Spencer has been fighting pretty dang well at this weight. The only loss that she has was against Chris Cyborg, and she probably learned a lot, and that went to decision. I remember that, Cyborg, around that time, I think she finally lost to Nunez before that, but then she comes back in a vengeance and beats Felicia Spencer, but she had to go to a decision to do that, and that tells me that Felicia Spencer's pretty good.
Yeah.
The first thing I looked at was, I want to bet the total, right? And I realized I was wrong. I looked, and I'm like, round and a half. I'm thinking Nunez, she can kick people's asses. She just went to this unanimous decision. She's going to go for the jugular, right?
Okay.
So that's what I was thinking. But then again, I don't think that Spencer's going to allow it. I think she's going to stay away. And I think the whole public is going to be betting that under 1.5 rounds. It started at plus 170 for under a round and a half. Then some money came in it. It went down to plus 160. And then I think the sharper bettors hit the minus 180. And now it's back to minus 200. And now it's back to plus 170. The under 1.5 rounds, plus 170. The over 1.5 rounds, minus 200. I actually think there might be some value on over 1.5 rounds at minus 200. And God, if Nunez is stupid enough to get caught just by being overly aggressive because she went to a unanimous decision, then you could be right about that. In saying that, there's no way I'm going to lay minus 600 here.
Can't do it.
I can't do that at all. But I would consider going over a round and a half at minus 200. And hell, if Nunez beats the shit out of her, I'm happy losing that bet. Because as a Nunez fan, I am totally cool with losing that bet. But there's also a prop bet to go to the decision. Fight goes to decision at plus 200. I can even see that happening.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet too. How about this? All right, so you're thinking that it's going to go to decision, Kiev? Why don't you start stacking it on there? Okay, fight's going to start at round 3. Boom. Fight's going to start 4. Okay, I'm getting plus money again. It's going to start at round 5. I'm going to get another plus 165. If you're telling me it's going to go to decision, start stacking.
You can absolutely stack it, and that way you're kind of hedging. You won the first couple if it doesn't. So that's a strategy that people absolutely partake in. So I'm loving it. So you got some agreement there, right?
Yeah, I think it could happen, man. Listen, at some point, right? Look, we can't read people's minds, right? So she's doing commercials. Right? Everybody's telling her she's the GOAT. She's fighting somebody that's a no-name. We're coming off of Corona, right? She's going up against somebody that's extremely hungry to win, right? It's almost like a little tinderbox, Kiev. A tinderbox, right? Maybe it's cloudy out. Maybe it's cloudy. And that tinderbox maybe will get lit. And if Nunez comes out like a maniac, it starts raining and it puts that tinderbox out. But it could go the other way, where the clouds clear up and everything starts burning, and that underdog takes it to her, and all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, I didn't work hard enough. Oh my God, she's hitting me hard. And the other one's saying, I'm building confidence here, right? That's my concern. Well, that is my concern. It's not a team game. It's an individual game. I like that you said that she came in a little bit chubby, right? Because I know when I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I get a little bit chubby, right? And it could be a sign. I'm not saying it's going to be the sign, but there's some cracks in there.
All right. Well, I'm not going to go that far yet, and I still think there's a chance that Nunez kicks the living shit out of her before a round and a half. But I'm willing to pay a little bit. I'm willing to pay a little bit to not have to stress out for the full 5 rounds. And if I get there, that's fine. I'm liking the over round and a half at minus 200. I'd probably do that for a few units, and then I'd probably throw a half unit to a unit on the plus 200. Probably, let's just say a half unit. The core of the size of the bet will go to that, but the bigger bet's going to go to over a round and a half, my man. Anything else?
Have fun with it.
Anything else we are missing in this card, buddy?
It's a good card. Guys, honestly, it's a good card. I went up and down, and I watched a bunch of fights, and I go, listen, I in good consciousness, I can't tell you to put money on anybody of these other fighters because it can go either way, right? The what I told you is what I feel comfortable with, right? There was a fight that I was looking at with Gerard Mirshek, but his opponent ended up going out, so he's fighting a guy in short notice with 3 days' notice. So right now there's no numbers up for it, right? So if you could grab Mirshek, and it's spelled MEERS, and then the rest of it, you'll see it, and you feel like, oh my God, this guy's been training and he's getting a guy in here real quick, and you want to throw a couple bucks on him because he was a dog. But yeah, there's a lot of great fights. You're going to enjoy it either way. ESPN Plus for your early prelims. Your prelims are going to be on, I believe it's going to be ESPN, and the rest of that is going to be on your pay-per-view. So it'll be fun.
All right, well, that was Cub Fan Danny breaking down this card. Remember, he did tweet out a winner last weekend of the main event at some very nice plus money. So he's been on fire lately. We had a blast making some money at UFC 249 as well, Danny. You've been on fire, man. I cannot wait to get a few more of your plays.
I'm going to do my best I can, buddy.
All right. Well, hey, everyone, have a fantastic time watching these fights, watching the Santa Anita Derby this weekend. If you have any questions for us, we are here for you. Please tweet us at The Odds Breakers. Have a great time and go get some winners.